everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dip dye some yarn into two colors that are part of the same family. This is really similar to one of the projects that I did in my review of ProChem acid dyes, where I dip dyed the yarn into two different purples that gave beautiful results. And so I figured I have two blues that would be great for primary color mixing, but what would happen if we dip dye into one blue and then the other? And so that is exactly what we are going to do today using ProChem acid dyes in Brillant Blue and Sea Breeze, which is the more like cyan turquoise color. I don't have a complete collection of ProChem acid dyes, but I do have a review where I did a first look with some crude swatches. And so you can see that the blues are sufficiently different. So in dip dyeing into these two colors, we'll get a yarn that will look different than if we were to just dip dye into just the one blue, where we would get dark to light blue. This should give us like a deeper blue to a brighter blue. But we're gonna be doing at a not super saturated depth of shade. So, well, we'll see. Let's go look at the yarn. Today we're going to dye 200 grams of Knomad's Salcanty yarn. This yarn is 100% fine superwash merino wool. It's bulky weight and I really like it. It's one of my favorite bases that I've tried from Knomad so far. This video is not sponsored or anything like that, but Knomad did give me this yarn for free for a video earlier this year. And I will include a link down in the video description if you would like to learn more. And my video description also has tons of links and affiliate links to all of the tools and equipment I use in my videos. So if you'd like to learn more about any of that, you can find that in the description. In this 8-quart dedicated dye pot, I have 24 cups of water, and now I'm going to add approximately 25 milliliters of our blue acid dye. And since the pot is not yet warm, I will rinse out the syringe I use for measuring in the dye pot. This blue is ProChem's Brillant Blue. And I haven't really used this dye much at all, so I'm very excited to see the kind of color we will end up with. But now we're gonna heat this up before we dip dye into this first color. Oh, and I wanna add acid, so I am going to add 6 tablespoons of white vinegar. 3, 4, 5, 6. From my angle, it was looking a little bit purple when I started adding the dye, and so that gave me a little bit of pause, but then I realized I'm just seeing the reflection of my red spoon on the surface. Oh dear. That's the thing about using new to you dyes. Sometimes some colors may react differently with acid and you don't really know until you try them. But I do believe that Brillant Blue is a primary and Sea Breeze may also be a primary. Editing Rebecca will let us know. But yeah, since the Brillant Blue is a primary, it probably wouldn't shift. But yeah, you never know. So it's why keeping a close eye on things and observing different things is good. Oh, and while I have your attention, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. But let's go dip dye the yarn. I don't know how warm we are, but let's start dip dyeing into this blue. Now, with the just 25 milliliters that I've added, that isn't a lot of dye. And so we have 200 grams of yarn total. And so, yeah, this could be more pigmented, but I think you'll see that the color is fairly pigmented already, and I haven't even dipped in half of the yarn yet. I think I'm gonna need to get a step stool for when we do the next color, because I am not very tall and these skeins feel fairly long. But I'm trying to dip dye them together as much as I can, so that way we can have sort of matched skeins. But certainly, oh good, the color is clearing. That's the thing with not being super familiar with a new dye brand and with different colors, it's that you don't always know how quickly different colors absorb, which is why it's good to play around with them. Now, there's not very much color left at all, and we will be adding more color to the other side, but I am going to go ahead and just add all of the yarn in. And I think I'll set a timer for about 15 minutes to let the rest of this color absorb onto the yarn, and then we can remove the yarn to reset to dye the next color. But I decided to start with the Brillant Blue because based on my experience, a blue like this might strike pretty quickly. A blue like the Sea Breeze that is more turquoise may need more time. And so when I'm dip dyeing into two colors, I prefer to pick a color that will strike a little bit faster to use first. But I guess that depends, because there may be times where I might do a lighter color and then first and then a darker color. But in this circumstance, I knew that I hoped that this color would strike pretty quickly. And so that's why we started there. And yeah, I don't know if there's some blue staining. That could be blue staining on the pot versus more dye. I don't know. Interesting. But I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Ooh, okay, I'm seeing some blue transfer onto that light end. Interesting. I wonder if there was still blue left or if it just hadn't set and had soaked in. See, these are all things that are interesting to know about colors. But I'm gonna go set this aside so that way it can cool enough for me to move the zip ties around before we go ahead to dip dye in the other side. But in the meantime, I'm gonna leave the heat on here and I'm gonna add 25 milliliters of a 1% stock of the Sea Breeze color. This is that brighter blue color. Okay, the yarn is still really warm, but I want to take it now and move the zip tie down to the deepest end. So I am transferring the zip tie just, I guess, all the way down, rotating things just, I guess, 180 degrees. And this way, when I dip dye this time, the deepest color will go in last. Okay, I did grab a step stool so that way I can not have to reach my arm up over my head quite as much. But now we're gonna dip dye into this color, which you can see is a much, much brighter blue to start with. Even as we build it up, it's almost like it's a little bit more yellow. Or maybe the better way to describe it, I'm going in a little bit fast because I want to make sure I get some coverage all over. Maybe the better way to describe it is that the other blue has more red in it. I haven't done any color mixing with ProChem dyes. Well, I guess technically this is color mixing, but I haven't done like triad color mixing with ProChem dyes yet. But in general, the more sort of turquoisey blue colors, if you add a little bit of pink to them, then you can get a blue that is a lot more like that brilliant blue color. And so that's what I mean when I say that the other one is more pink. And so therefore, I don't know which one is more cool toned or warm toned. If it's got more pink in it, does that make it more warm toned? Please let me know. Color theory is not a strength. Now, okay, looking in the pot, and again, I'm not sure if it's maybe the reflection of the light. There are parts that look a little bit green, which is interesting. I think the Sea Breeze blue is dominating things a bit, but I don't mind. I think it's really, really pretty. Really pretty. It also seems to be striking pretty quickly. Like there's a lot less color in here now than there was before. And so I'm glad I went a little bit fast, and in fact, I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of the yarn now. And I think it is really, really pretty. And this kind of two blue toned thing works well because, I mean, we're starting with two blues that we knew were really, really different. If we had, say, like a sapphire blue and a peacock blue, you could still do something like this, but the differences between those blues are so subtle that it might be harder to see. It might be easier than to take a semi-solid blue and then dip into a pastel to get like a tiny little shift. I don't know, but I do know that this is really pretty. So now I'm gonna wanna let this heat for at least 30 minutes because we want all of the color to set really, really well, which, I mean, it mostly has, but maybe I should add a little vinegar now. Yeah, let's just add 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. It's not gonna hurt to have more acid, but we should get a very, very beautiful yarn. And so yeah, I'll come back in about 30 minutes. Whew, this is so, so pretty. I would like a sock blank with this. Ooh, let's do like the light blue and then the deeper blue and then a navy. Ooh, that would be super pretty. And these colors could definitely be even more intense, but I like the like not super saturated. I mean, they're still bright, but they could be way brighter. Ooh, there's a little bit of color left in the pot. Interesting. Okay, let's turn off the heat. I already added more acid. Let's go ahead and leave, I didn't even notice, leave the yarn here in the pot to cool for a while. Adding just the rest of that vinegar that I have, at least a couple of hours, probably, and then we'll remove it to wash it. Let's wash our dip dyed yarn. And I do want to show you that the dye bath is completely clear after letting the yarn cool completely in the pot. And so that is always a good thing. Ugh, this color is so fun. So I'm not seeing any color come out in the water. And let's go ahead and add just a little bit of some clear dish soap. Just so that way we can see if any color will start to come out. And yeah, I'm not seeing any color bleed. So I'm going to need to rinse out the soap, put the yarn through my spin dryer, and then hang it up to dry. Now, I know that this washing phase can get repetitive in a lot of my videos, but the reason why I continue to share it is because most of the time, things are like this, where we see no color bleeding at all. But occasionally, we see some color come out, and it's worth me sharing when that does happen, so you can see that it happens more frequently with certain colors maybe, and things like that, and then how I try to troubleshoot it. So I hope that that is as helpful for all of you as it is for me. Not that I always remember which circumstances had big bleeding or little bleeding, but I do think that it's helpful within a project, and then knowing how to adjust formulas going forward. It's just a helpful thing to know. And so anyway, I'll show you the finished dry yarn in a moment. Before we talk about our beautiful, just blue dip dyed colorway, I want to just take a moment and talk about this Salcanty base from Knomad. I think that this is the second time that I've dyed this bulky Superwash Merino base. It is delightful. Look at how round and plump these plies are. I think it would be a joy to knit with. I wish there was also a version that was like even bulkier. I think that would be so fun. But this is definitely one of my favorite bases from Knomad. Absolutely love the base, and so wanted to point that out again, because each time I pick this up, I go, ooh. But let's talk color. Blue on blue. This was so much fun. I think a lot of times if I'm going to dip dye into two colors, I try to pick two things that maybe will blend into another color in the middle and things like that. And so I don't often think about playing with, I guess I do play with pink and red sometimes, and I definitely have played with multiple blues in the past, but you know, this is really exciting to me, and I love how it feels like a wave. That's what it feels like. It feels a little bit like a wave. It feels oceany. I don't know. I'm really, really into it. And definitely want to do more dip dyeing content. I've always enjoyed dip dyeing, but especially just challenging myself with the color palettes, I think also would be fun. Now, which isn't to say that like blue on blue isn't a like novel, unexpected color palette. But in a ProChem review that I did a while back, when I dip dyed into two different purples, that really had me thinking like, ooh, I want to do this more, this kind of thing, and play with two colors that are so similar, because you could almost, I don't know, this almost feels like it's broken. Like A lot of times to get more of this blue, if you were to add some pink to this color, you can mix that blue. So it does remind me a little bit of Breaking Wilton's, I think, Royal Blue, where you have the deeper blue and it gets lighter. There's an element of that just feels, well, I guess for me it's a little bit nostalgic. So anyway, I'm really excited by this color. And now I want to talk again. This is something I bring up, I don't know, I feel like every couple months. But there's a big reason why I like to do a flat lay of the yarn in some kind of way to share what the yarn looks like in my shop when I'm listing it. And that's because when yarn is twisted up, it's really hard to say what kind of colorway it is, how many sections there are of each color, and things like that. Even when the yarn is as it was dyed and not reskeined. But when the yarn is laid out flat, you can see, okay, there's a lot more of the more like cyan blue, a little bit less of the more like primary, maybe it's not Crayola blue, but the more brilliant blue. And so there are differences there, but there is just like one section of each color. There's not like 4 sections of color that alternate and things like that. And so anyway, that's why I encourage people to include a skein untwisted. Sometimes people do it in a really beautiful way with having a skein open and a twisted one on top. Anything like that just helps give the customer more of a feel of what the yarn could work up to be. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I love all things yarn. I love all things playing with color and yarn. And so if you like that too, please subscribe, turn on notifications. You don't want to miss anything. I post over 100 videos every year. And yeah, well over 100 videos every year. And you don't want to miss any of them. I do read comments on my videos. And so if you have a question, I know there's a lot of content here, I can try to help point you in the direction of a video that might help what it is you're looking for. The best way to get my attention is to leave a new comment. If you reply to a comment that I've left on one of my videos, I'm not as likely to see it just because of the way that YouTube shares comments with me. And so that's one of the best ways to get my attention. And so I do my best, but of course there's some that I miss, but I do try to answer questions because one of my goals is for us to all learn together. And yeah, I feel like there's still so much that I'm learning all the time, even though I don't even know how many videos now. But anyway, I'm gonna go and dye up some more yarn. So thank you so much for watching. Have you ever wished that you could swatch a lot of the yarn that I dye up so you can see how it knits or crochets? Well, with the ChemKnits Chanukah sampler, you will have 9 different mini skeins featured in 8 nights of Chanukah videos, all dyed with different techniques, all are different types of colorways, so you can swatch and play and see how yarn dyed different ways might work up. It's a really fun way to treat yourself and get a chance to play around with a lot of different types of colorways. The 2022 ChemKnits Chanukah samplers are available for pre-order in my Etsy shop. They will be shipping in early November, and each sampler comes with multiple wrapped packages that you can unwrap and explore while watching a new yarn dyeing video every night of Chanukah. The whole event is so much fun, and this is the 5th year of it, and I cannot wait for you to see what I have in store for you. You can learn more by checking out the links that are down in the video description, or you can head over to the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop and click on the Chanukah tab.